What is up, YouTube? Before we get into this video, I want to address something. I want to apologize for the lack of videos in 2023. I have had plenty of video ideas, but the problem is that back in June, my video editing software stopped working, and I still haven't found a solution for that yet. So that explains the lack of videos in 2023. However, I have been able to make some YouTube shorts for those of you that want to check them out. But yeah. So I figured I'd end off 2023 by filming different parts of my game collection. So in this video, we are going to be going over my SEGA Saturn collection. I've had the Saturn for about a year now, and it's one of, if not, my favorite console of all time. So in this video, I'm going to be going over my SEGA Saturn collection and all the games for it. Let's go. First off, I'm going to be showing off the imports. If you're a Saturn collector, you're definitely going to have at least a few imports because you're not a true Saturn person unless you have at least a few imports from Japan. But let's start off with the import games, why don't we? First off, we have Panzer Dragoon. This was the first Japanese import game for the SEGA Saturn that I picked up. I haven't bothered to take this price sticker off the case yet, but yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, as a Saturn fan, I really want to like this game more, but I'm personally just not a big Panzer Dragoon fan. I'm sorry, as a Saturn fan, I want to like this game more, but personally, I just didn't care for this one. Now, yeah, I'm sure the sequel is a superior game, but I have yet to play that one. But, yeah, there's my first Japanese import game, Panzer Dragoon. Next up, we have Rockman X3. You might have seen my unboxing video of this game, but yeah, as many of you know, this was originally a Super Nintendo and Super Famicom game, but outside of America, it found itself getting ported to the SEGA Saturn and the PlayStation 1. Despite this port being on a 32-bit console, the graphics look exactly the same as its original Super Nintendo and Super Famicom counterpart. It's basically like the same thing as putting a Genesis game on the Sega CD. The game looks exactly the same as the cartridge version, although the CD version has brand new cutscenes and CD audio. But yeah, there's Rockman X3. And my third and final import game that I have right now for the Saturn. This is Sega Rally Championship. I went with the Japanese version, but yeah. Of course, as you might know, it is an arcade racing game, and this one is obviously a must-own for any Saturn collection. But yeah, those are all three of my Japanese import games. let's move on to the North American games now. Now, before I show off the North American games, I want to explain that I don't have all of my games on the same shelf. I do plan on getting a whole new shelf so I can put my entire Saturn collection on there, as well as my PlayStation collection that I'm starting off. But as for now, I'm sharing this shelf with a bunch of other stuff with my Saturn games. But without further ado, let's move on to the North American games. Why don't we? First off, we have Andretti Racing by EA. This is, as you might expect, a racing game. You know, it's pretty cool. If you like racing games, I would definitely recommend checking this game out. But yeah, hold up. Let me put this back in there. So yeah, there is Andretti Racing. Next up, we have a stall. This is a must own. And for some reason, the spine of the case doesn't have the title. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, this is one of my favorite games of all time. And as you can see, what makes my copy special is that it has an old Blockbuster video sticker on the back, and someone rented this game in 98, which in 98, that was the final year of the Saturn's life in North America. But yeah, here's a stall. Definitely one of the best games on the Saturn. It's one of my personal favorites of all time. Yeah, this came out very early in the Saturn's lifespan, and it has some of the best graphics seen in a video game. It's the perfect example to show off just how powerful the 32-bit consoles are, especially the Saturn. It really goes to show that the 32-bit consoles are more capable in terms of graphics and whatnot than what was capable on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Also, I keep the styrofoam I keep this bubble wrap in the case because the manual is missing the pages. So I just keep this in there to keep the artwork on the front of the case looking flat. But yeah, there's the game disc. Like I said, this game is a must-own for any Saturn collection. Next off, we have Bug. This was another very early platformer in the life of the Saturn. Yeah, and it's also a very affordable game. So without any doubt, this is a must-own for any Saturn collection. Although in my opinion, this game is mid, but it's definitely one you should own in your Saturn collection. And this piece of styrofoam just fell out, but there's the game disc right there. And here is the sequel, Bug 2. This came out a year later in late 96, and I did do an unboxing of this on a YouTube short, but yeah, it's just like the first game. It is really hard. It really is hard, but at least the sequel has 2 additional playable characters. So, yeah, still worth owning in any Saturn collection. Next off, we have Bust a Move 2. This is another must-own game in any Saturn collection. It's one of the most affordable games for the Saturn, and it's also a really fun game. Great game, worth owning in any Saturn collection. There's the game disc. Next off, we have Clockwork Knight. This game, I believe, was one of the first games that was available for the Saturn day one when the Saturn launched here in May of '95. But yeah, it's a 2D platformer, and this was definitely a great game to start off the Saturn with. It's got a mixture of both 2D sprites and 3D polygons, and it's a great game, especially for the time, because when the Saturn came out, this really showed that it was more capable than anything that was possible on the Sega Genesis. Next off, we have Daytona USA. This one is a classic. Now, this port was rushed to meet the launch of the Saturn, as many of you all know, but yeah. Next up, we have Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Just like Virtua Fighter, they made a remake of this game because they weren't too happy with the port available at launch. Some people might prefer the first Daytona USA on the Saturn for the gameplay, and I can see why, but personally, I prefer this updated version because it's got better graphics and a better frame rate. But tell me in the comments, which Daytona on the Saturn do you prefer? I got this yesterday for Christmas, and you don't see the disc in here because it's inside my Sega Saturn right now. But yeah, there is Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Next up, we have Fighting Vipers. This is a really cool arcade fighting game. In the Japanese version of this, you can unlock Pepsi Man as a playable character. But yeah, if you like fighting games, the Sega Saturn is definitely a great console. If you like arcade fighting games, the Saturn is definitely the console for you because it received a lot of great ports of arcade fighting games. Now, unfortunately, the case for this one, as you can see, unfortunately, the case for this one broke. So I'm gonna have to replace the case for this one soon. But yeah, there's the game disc right there. Hold up for a minute. I'll just figure it out later. A piece of the case just fell off. Next up, we have Mega Man X4. I also did an unboxing video of this one. Now, like I mentioned in that video, this is not an original copy. This is a reproduction of the game. Yeah, because US copies of this game are very expensive. The disc itself goes for over $100, and a complete copy sells upwards of $400. But yeah, I got this reproduction from Etsy, and if we're being honest, why spend over $100 on a CD that's over 25 years old when for much less you could buy a brand new CD? I think I paid like 60 or 70 bucks for it, but it's a great reproduction that allows me to play one of the best games from the 90s on real Saturn hardware. And of course, here is our burned disc of Mega Man X4. Next up, we have NASCAR 98. I got this game for free at Mo Game Con earlier this year. I figured since this was a game I could get for free, I might as well check it out because a racing game looked cool, but I honestly didn't care too much for this one. I don't know if the PlayStation version of this is any better, but yeah, it's a really cheap game if you want to check it out, but I didn't care for this one too much. Next up, we have Nights into Dreams. This is, of course, as you know, this is a flagship title of the SEGA Saturn. It came out in '96, I believe right before the Nintendo 64 came out with Mario 64. But yeah, as I mentioned in my birthday gifts video, this case right here is a reproduction. I went with a disc-only copy of this game and then bought a reproduction case because a complete copy of this game in the US actually goes for quite a bit of money. So that's why I did this instead. And there's the game disc right there. And every time I open one of these cases on camera, the piece of foam always falls out. So let me pick that back up. Okay, sorry about that. Next up, we have Rayman right here. I also got this one for Christmas yesterday, but yeah, I really enjoyed this game. It's really fun. Another one of the best platformers. Just like a stall, the game has really great graphics that are full of color and a lot of charm. And yeah, there's the game disc right there. Everything is in really good condition. But yeah, this one, as you know, is also on the PlayStation. The Saturn version is a little bit harder to find, but seeing as the Saturn is my preferred console, that is the version I looked for. And on top of that, I think the game plays great with the Saturn controller. But yeah, there is Rayman right there, a very great game. Next up, we have Virtua Cop. If you like arcade gun games, then this one is a must-own. Of course, you'll need a CRT television to use the Saturn stunner gun, but yeah, there is the game disc right there for Virtua Cop. And finally, we have Virtua Fighter 2. This was the very first game that I got with my SEGA Saturn back in October of 2022. And I believe this came out in late 1995, but this is one of the most impressive games on the Saturn. The game runs in the high-res mode. The game looks great. The polygons and textures have a lot of detail, and the game runs at a smooth 60 frames per second. For 1995, this is without a doubt one of the most impressive games available for the Saturn, and this really goes to show just how powerful the Saturn is as a console. Now, just like Fighting Vipers, the case is broken, so again, I'm going to have to replace this game case as well. But there is the game disc right there for Virtua Fighter 2, the first game that I picked up with my SEGA Saturn. Let me try to put this back together. Yeah, when it comes to Saturn and PlayStation 1 games, it's very common to find games with broken cases because the cases are made out of glass, which as a result, that makes them really fragile, which makes them really easy to break. But yeah, there is Virtua Fighter 2. And that wraps up my SEGA Saturn collection. As of December of 2023, these are all the games that I have got for my SEGA Saturn. I definitely enjoy the Saturn. It's definitely one of the best consoles of all time. So, yeah, I'm enjoying ending off 2023 by sharing off what I've got in my game collection throughout 2023. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya. So I know I just ended off the video, but upon watching it, I realized I forgot something. I forgot to show off my copy of Sonic 3D Blast, but yeah, here's Sonic 3D Blast for the SEGA Saturn. As you all know, this is one of 3 Sonic titles that were available for the SEGA Saturn, and as a result of the infamous cancellation of Sonic Extreme, they wanted a Sonic title on the Saturn available for Christmas time, but due to Sonic Extreme being canceled, they quickly released a port of Sonic 3D Blast for the Saturn. So Sonic 3D Blast is on both the Saturn and the Genesis, but the Saturn port has better graphics and better special stages with 3D polygons, but for the most part, it's exactly the same as the Genesis game. So, yeah, there is the game disc right there. So, yeah, I forgot about Sonic 3D Blast when filming my collection, so I'm gonna have to go into iMovie and edit this in. But yeah, there is my SEGA Saturn collection of 2023. So yeah, I also still can't find the piece that fell off my Fighting Vipers case, but yeah, thanks for watching this video. See you guys in the next video. Bye.